All right, here we go, folks. Canvas. So the big picture of what Canvas is, it's just like it sounds when you're an artist, like a painter, like Mr. Bob Ross, our friend, happy little tree guy. What does he paint on? He paints on a canvas, right? He has a, what is it? A standard 12 by 14 canvas, right? Whatever. All right, and then he paints on it. So we're going to make in our web page a canvas, and then we're going to use our tools like a paintbrush kind of a thing. That's more of a metaphor to paint on this canvas, right? And you can do a lot of cool stuff on it. So canvas is just an HTML tag, all right? So I'm going to put in my body canvas. Canvas. That's it. We made a canvas. Okay? You want to see it? It's fabulous. There it is. It's invisible.
Wow.
Okay? It's there. It's very small at the moment. It's actually about yay big. It's about that big. Okay? You can control how big it is, and I'll show you how. We can also control what it looks like in a minute. I'll show you that too. But see if you can remember that spot. See how close I was, right? I'm gonna go make it to where you can see it in my CSS. I'm just gonna style canvas. Background color pink. Feel free to choose another color. Oh, I was off. That's how big it is. Make sure I'm full size. Yep, full size. That's how big it is. Now, you can use your CSS to just, width equals or whatever, but I want it to be a very specific calculated width. I could just say 1,000, but I want it to be exactly the width of my viewer, my browser. I want it to be the exact height of my browser, all right? So, one thing you're gonna need to do to make sure that this doesn't mess you up, in your override code right here, look at my star on line 2, make sure you have these two properties right here. Box sizing border box and overflow hidden. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with scroll bars on your canvas, and we don't want that, okay? All right? So let's just make the canvas, and then I'll explain to you what it is and what it can do. So I'm gonna go into my JavaScript, and I'm going to create a variable. My canvas is like it's my world that I'm gonna paint everything, right? So I'm gonna call it world, right? That's my canvas. I'm gonna say let world, all right? And it's going to equal what? It's gonna equal that canvas object, right? So how do we get objects out of our DOM?
Element by ID.
Get element by ID or by tag, or we can just use the query selector, which is one we talked about the other day. So we're gonna go with document.query selector canvas. Okay, so now I've grabbed the object, the canvas object, that little teeny pink square, I've grabbed that. Now I want to set some of its properties, okay? I want to set its width, and I want to set its height. There's lots of properties that Canvas has, but we're just going to focus on these right now, okay? So here we go. And again, don't worry so much. Let me have a timeout for a minute, guys. Hands up for just a second. This code we're going to look at, stop typing for just a minute, please. This code we're going to look at is very involved. And if you get hung up on trying to keep up with the details, you're going to miss the big picture. I guarantee this more than any other lecture we've had in this class. If you're too focused on typing what I'm typing, you're going to end up missing the big picture. And the big picture is a little messy, right? So I want to make sure you're focused. I'm not saying you can't type it. I'm saying you can't take notes, but I am saying I am recording it, and you're better off just maybe kind of watching, maybe not. Just giving you a heads up. All right, so I grabbed this canvas object, right? So it has a property called width, .width, and I want to set it equal to what's called the inner width of the window. The window is an object in JavaScript. Window is an object you can manipulate. So I want to go set it to the inner width of the window, okay? What the inner width is all the way up to the edge here, right? It's right up to the edge. Right, so I'm setting it to that. Let me just run this, and who knows what's going to happen? Nope. We're going to get an error. Anybody know what it is? What is it? No, I thought you should get it. Yeah. What is it? It's an error I always make. A mistake I always make in my JavaScript code. This time it's intentional though.
Oh, semicolon?
No.
You didn't put it in the the HTML, you put the JavaScript?
Yes. So what's going to happen, the JavaScript's going to run on line 8, and it's going to try to find some object called canvas. Canvas has not been born yet for 3 more lines, right? So we're going to move our script tag below that so that we don't have a problem, okay? So it's going to go down here. All right. Now, what?
Can you put deferred in there?
Lots of other ways, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
lots of other, we're not going to mess with the, yeah. Yep, so, but now, if I refresh it, we get nothing. What did I miss, folks? World.width equals inner width. Let me look at my console, see if I got an error. Yes, I got an error. What do we got? Maybe I just need to clear that, and maybe I just didn't save it. Let me do a hard refresh. Why are we getting, already we're starting with an error?
Can't set property null.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's saying that.
Is it the CSS was null?
CSS was no?
No, is it because the CSS is the word? What do you see?
World's already been declared. What the heck's going on here? I use it all the time. Let's just call it, I'm going to call it CAN for canvas. Just see, that should not be a problem. Line 2, what is going on here? Let me pause the video so I don't have this on tape. It's ridiculous. Okay, crisis averted here. Sorry about that, guys. I just had this twice here, that's all. It was trying to do it the first time, so that was giving me an error. So I'm going to go back to putting the world there because I like that better. And now, let's go back here. There we go, jeez. Now, notice a little problem though. My console's open. Watch what happens when I close my console. It doesn't resize. If I refreshed it, it would be the right size. We're going to deal with that problem in a minute, all right? For now, let's just make it the right size. Sorry about that little glitch there. All right, so world.height is equal to inner height. Yeah? Now we got the whole canvas is covered. If I did not have those 2 CSS properties, box model, or box sizing, and border box, and overflow hidden, then we'd have a scroll bar right now, right? Which is yucky. Okay, next up. Now that we got the window the way we want it, that whole pink area is now our canvas that we can paint on, all right? So I'm going to make an object that has all of these properties that control. You can draw things, you can make circles, you can make squares, you can make arcs and triangles and lines and whatever you want, right? All kinds of stuff. So that's kind of like my paintbrush or my pencil, if you will. So I'm gonna just make the variable called pencil. Doesn't matter what you call it though. Let pencil equal the world, my canvas, dot get context. This is a function, okay, and I'll explain to you the function in a minute. 2D as in 2-dimensional. You can also do 3-dimensional, right? We can do 3D stuff. What this line of code does, this right here, world.getContext, returns an object. And I'll show you some stuff in that object in a minute. We'll look at it on W3 Schools. But it returns an object. This object has draw properties and things where you can draw circles and all these things and all these methods and properties you can manipulate. But it's an object with a whole bunch of stuff that allows us to draw stuff. Okay, so let's quickly look at some of the things that are available to us. We're only going to use a couple today. W3 Schools, and it's the get context right there. It's already highlighted. Here we go. All right, so first of all, look at the browser support. It's pretty darn good. The canvas element, okay? This right here, it tells you that the get context method returns an object that provides methods for drawing the canvas, which is what I just told you a second ago, okay? So here's some of the properties. We're gonna look at some of these today. Fill style, stroke style. We're not gonna look at the shadow stuff right now, but there's things like we have rect and fill rect and fill and stroke. We're gonna look at fill and we'll look at stroke maybe next time. Line 2, we're gonna look at some of that next time. We're gonna look at arc today. There's lots of different things. Scale, rotate, translate, all kinds of stuff in here that are all methods that are now available to my pencil, right? So I can pencil dot whatever those methods are, okay? And I'll have access to all this stuff. So right now, I just want to draw a circle. Well, there's actually not a circle function that's returned in this object, this get context object, but there is an arc. Okay, so you can draw an arc. All right, so we're going to say, I'm going to give you two little snippets of code here that, for right now, just push the I believe button that you need them, and later we'll get into an explanation why. It's hard to see their purpose when you're dealing with spheres and circles. When you start drawing lines, it's very clear what their purpose is, but you need them in both cases. Okay, so my pencil dot begin path, and I need a pencil dot stop, close path. Our code's gonna go in between those two, all right? Again, just for now, push the I believe button. I will explain those next week, right? Thank you, I'm glad somebody appreciated that. Okay, so inside of here, I want to create an arc, right? And what's an arc? Just a curve, right? Right? So pencil dot arc, and there's a whole bunch of parameters. There's an X and a Y for the center point of the arc, okay? There's a radius, so X, Y, and R. I'm just gonna put the variables for now. We're gonna put real numbers in a second. Then there is the starting point and the ending point. Now this is done in radians. If you're not familiar with how radians work in a circle, look it up, okay? We're not gonna get into that. This is not a geometry class, okay? But we want to go, to get a full circle, we want to go 0 to what?
2 pi.
Pi times 2, right? Math.pi times 2. That will take us from 0, and then if you look up here, even though you can't see this on the camera, but look up here, 0, all the way around 360 degrees back to where we started. Math pi times 2 radians will give us 360 degrees, okay? There's one more parameter, but it's largely irrelevant. The parameter is, do I want to draw it clockwise or draw it counterclockwise? I have no idea why that matters. Why would that matter? It's actually an optional parameter, so we can just leave it off.
Probably for like math sense.
Maybe, yeah, maybe when you, maybe if you're drawing not a full circle, it might make a difference where your starting point is. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, there's probably other uses. I've just never really used it. So let's put in some actual values here. X, I'm gonna just put it at about 100 pixels over, 100 pixels down, and it's gonna have a radius of like 50, okay? So this right here should give us, well, there's one thing missing. Let's watch what happens. When I refresh, nothing, right? There's one thing we're missing. That is pencil dot fill. I think that's the proper, no, pencil dot stroke. Come on, folks. I'm testing my memory now. First thing we're gonna need a stroke style. That's probably what my problem is. Stroke style is equal to red. And that should give us what we need there. Nope. There's a piece that I always miss every time I do this. It'll come to me. Give me a minute. Let's do a fill here. Fill style. Let's leave this off for just a minute and do a fill. Something I'm not seeing, folks. Did I? Oh, I know why. Because I didn't draw my arc properly. I deleted one of my variables. No wonder. I forgot the 0. Starting at 0, going to math pi. I was like, I knew that was right. Okay. There we go. Jeez, sorry about that. Okay, so let's go back to what I was trying to do. This is just a stroke. That should have worked. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. That was just my brain cramping up. I overlooked the fact that I didn't put the 0 point. So we have the X, the Y, the radius, and then starting point, ending point, right? So if I just go to math.pi, not times 2, I get a halfway there, right? So it's an arc, okay? And if I wanted to go from math.pi to 0, that would give me an arc the other way, okay? So but we want a full circle. So we're gonna go math.pi 2. That's just a constant in the library. All right, sorry about the little mix up there. I was missing a variable. Okay, so basic big picture, we got a circle now, right? Great. We can fill it in and we can give it a stroke. So I can also say pencil dot fill, Now it fills it in. Notice it's filling it in with just a default color of black. We can control that, all right? So let's make the, before the arc, we're gonna say pencil dot fill style. This is one of these properties that's a property of this get context object, okay? All this stuff is properties and methods of that. Equals 5. Equals red, okay? So now it's gonna have a red fill, but it still has a black stroke. You see that? Okay? And we're gonna we'll change the stroke color, and that is stroke style, and that's gonna be equal to blue. So now you can see a blue. Can you see the stroke there? It's blue now, all right? So again, what's happening here, and keep in mind, this stuff has to be contained between the begin and the close path here, which will make more sense when we look at drawing lines later. But what I've done, I've created a canvas, set the width and the height. That's all I've done. Then I created what I'm calling a pencil, which is just an object that has a whole bunch of properties and methods. What are those properties and methods? They're all this crap right here. All this stuff is available to me, right? I have, we've looked at some of these already, like here's, where are we? Stroke and fill right there. Those are methods I can use, functions I can use. And then we also have line, let's see, stroke style, right? Fill style, okay? I can also do line width, right? Which is what we're gonna do now. Pencil.line width, which I'm gonna set it to 5. So it makes that the stroke a little bit bigger on there. Oops. Right? All right. So we made a ball. Yay. All right. Action here. Now, the real thing, why we really care about all this stuff, yeah, sure, I drew a little ball on my screen there, okay? And, let's fix that. Let's fix that resizing business next, and then we'll talk about the details here. But ultimately, we're gonna be able to make an array of these balls, right? And we can put them all over the screen. We're gonna be able to animate them. We're gonna put some collision detection on them, a whole bunch of stuff. We're gonna do a lot of that today, right now. But first, I wanna deal with this screen problem. So if I open up my console here and I refresh the page, and I showed you this a minute ago, if I resize my console, my canvas isn't resizing with it. So how could I fix that problem? This is something you know about. You may not know the exact way, but conceptually, do you have an idea? I want to change things when I resize my browser.
Some sort of event handler?
An event handler, right? On the window, right? So let's just quickly add an event handler. This code's gonna get messy real quick. We'll start cleaning it up a little ways along, but let's go window.add event listener, and I want to on resize. This is one of the things you can listen for in a JavaScript event handler. You can listen for resize, okay? What do I wanna do when I resize? I want to call some function that's called resize, right? That's maybe not a good choice of words. Like fix size or something like that, okay? I want to call a function called fix size, okay? I'm going to make that function down here out of the way. I'll do it here and then I'll copy and paste it down below. So function fix size. Now what do you suppose I want to do in that fix size function?
Set the width and height.
Yeah, I just want to run this code right here. Yeah? So maybe we should have like some sort of a setup function or something. We'll see as we move along. But for now, let's just duplicate our code for simplicity. We'll clean it up a little bit later, okay? But that's all I want to do. I just want to run that. So now that should solve the problem. Refresh, and now when I remove this, it resets it, right? Okay, look at that. Now what happened to my ball? Yeah, it got drawn over, okay? Which is a very key important of how this canvas works. Every time you refresh it, you're redrawing the canvas, which is how we're gonna create the illusion of animation, right? It's like the old days with the cartoons and the cellophane, where they draw one, then they put the plastic on, they draw another one right on top of it with a slight movement. We're basically gonna create that effect, the little flip books, you've seen those? That's the effect we're gonna do, right? So my idea of having a setup function was probably a good one. So let's do this. We're gonna have a setup function here. We're gonna call the setup function, and we're gonna get rid of that. And now what we're gonna do is, as soon as this page loads, we're just gonna call that setup function, right? And in here, we're going to, we can leave that for now. What did I just delete? I didn't mean to delete that. Yeah, this I wanted to delete. We're good there. Okay. And we're good there. Yeah. So as soon as we load up, we're going to call setup. This will work so far, right? This will give us the original thing with the ball, but as soon as I resize it, the ball goes away. So we need to fix that problem. Well, how can we fix that? I could, what's that? Draw the ball inside the setup function, right? Okay. Now, this, I don't want to have that big block of code in my setup. That's kind of messy.
Have a function.
So, or a class. Let's make a class, a ball class. So we can make a whole bunch of them eventually, right? So let's make a ball class. We're going to use the old school JavaScript function ball equals, or sorry, function ball, right? And we're going to pass into it an x, a y, and a radius, right? And then we're going to say, let's create a function called this dot, I don't know, show the ball or something, is equal to a function. And that's going to draw this code right here. It's going to do that. All right, so let's just pause at that moment. Make sure we understand that code right there. All I've done is I haven't, my function is not complete. My class, this is actually a class. It's not complete yet, but what I've done is I've just created a method called show so I can eventually say, you know, ball.show or whatever, right? So I need to finish up my function though by saying this dot x equals x, this dot y equals y, and this dot r equals r. Yeah? Make sense? What's the last thing I need to change?
In the pencil.r, can you change the numbers?
Yeah. Yep, I need these to be my variables there, right? This dot x, this dot, oh my gosh, y, and this dot r. Okay? So now I can create an object that's a ball, and then I can just draw that object simply inside of my setup function. Okay? All right, next up, let's go ahead and change this to where we're actually creating a ball. So I'm going to start off by saying let ball, and we'll just create that. And then in here, we're going to say ball equals new ball, and we'll pass in those coordinates that we just had before. Okay? That's pretty standard object-oriented coding right there, right? All right? And then inside of my setup function, I'm just going to draw the ball for now. We're going to change that in a minute, but for now. So ball.show. Okay? Can you dig it? Does anybody, I mean, I know most of you guys know objects, but this syntax is weird, right? So how, we feel okay with the syntax? We good? All right, so let's save it and refresh it. And we probably got an error in my console. Let's take a look. Yep, what do we got? Let's see. Oh, I must have an extra bracket somewhere here. Line 21. That doesn't look extra. What's this one go to? That's the function. You guys see it? Oh, I know. Missing my parentheses there. I did this backwards. Sorry. This is right here. Bad habit. Okay, that's the way you're supposed to do that. See that? Look at line 20. That's fixed the problem. Right? The brackets go next to the word function. Yeah, that was just Java flashback there. Sorry. Okay. Now we should be good. All right, except we have pencil is not defined at ball.show. No, what's happening here, we need it just before, right here. Actually, sorry, before here. Yeah, right there. So the best way to do that, I'm gonna take all these variables here and move them into my setup, all right? But let me run and show you that that should work now. Okay, now it's working. The problem was this setup function was trying to access this down here, referring to pencil. Theoretically, I should probably pass that pencil in as an argument, right? You see why? Okay, that's probably a cleaner way to do that. Maybe we'll do that in just a second. But the problem that was happening here was pencil didn't exist yet because it was down here on line 14, all right? So let's clean up this code just a little bit. I want to do this in my setup function, right? I want to do this in my setup function, right? And I'm just going to say, let's world ball pencil. Let's get rid of this. Oops. Right there. It's a little bit cleaner, okay? I'll move the setup to above here. All right, so this code should still work just fine. Does everybody see what happened there? I've got world, ball, and pencil. They're set up as global variables. Then my setup function is assigning world to that canvas object in our HTML. Then we're setting the width of that object to and the height to the size of the window. And then we're creating this pencil or brush or whatever we want to call it is equal to this whole function here that returns this whole object returns all these properties we're going to manipulate, right? Then we create a ball, and we should pass in that pencil right there. Pass that object in. Follow me? Everybody see that? Okay, we're going to pass that pencil in and accept it as an argument right here. Just call it P, and it's going to be this dot P equals, or sorry, yeah, equals P, right? And so now all these pencils here, we're going to change to this dot P. Can you dig it? Hold on, let me fix it, then I'll show you. Make sense? You follow it? Okay, let me make sure we understand what I just did. Rather than using a global variable that exists outside of this function, outside of this class, this is technically a class, right? In the Java world, would we ever do that? Have a global variable that just the class can just see? We'd never do that, never. You'd want to pass it in. So all I'm doing is creating a pencil here, right? Which is just that object that holds all this crap in it. And then I'm passing that into my ball class. I'm passing in an X, a Y, a radius, and the actual pencil that's going to do the drawing. And then that's the variable right there. I set this dot P inside of here equal to this P right here. And now that P, which is just one of these objects that's like a pencil or whatever, I'm calling all of its properties. Okay? Make sense? Make sure I didn't break it, and I did not break it. Okay? Quick recap here. We created 3 variables. I'm calling this setup function, which is this code right here, and I've got an event listener here that whenever I resize the window, it's just going to recall the setup function. All right? What's my setup function do? It takes this world object, which assigns it that canvas in my HTML. So that's the whole canvas object. That canvas object has, and again, it's just a tag, right? But it has a width property and a height property. I'm setting it to the window's width and height. So now I've built my canvas. It's full screen, right? And now I've created a pencil or brush, whatever you want to call it. Like we can rename it to brush if we wanted to. But I'm creating some object that's going to be this full object that has properties that I can change the fill, the stroke, the line style, if it's an arc, a rectangle, all this stuff. And then I'm going to create a ball, and I'm going to use this pencil to draw that ball. So I pass this pencil into my class we just made with an X, Y, and a radius parameter right here, X, Y, radius, and then the pencil. And then I have a function that is going to show it. What's it do to show it? It begins and closes the path. And I'll tab these over just because it kind of sets the stage of what's happening there. And then I use that pencil, this dot P is our pencil now, to make its fill style red, its stroke style blue, its line width 5. These are all properties of the this dot P, of that pencil. Then I draw an arc. Then what I do with this line that says arc, it just creates the arc. P dot stroke, this dot P dot stroke, draws it, right? And then fill fills it. If those 2 lines weren't there, we'd have nothing on our screen, okay? So, does that make sense? That's the whole project right now. All right, well, I want to animate it, right? I want to animate it. So I'll make it bounce off the edges of the screen or something like that, right? So first of all, I don't like that it's got this ugly blue. We're just gonna get rid of the stroke and make it just a red ball, right? So it's just with black. I want line width, nothing. There we go. And it's still got black in there, doesn't it? Yeah. I just need to turn off the stroke. There we go. That's all. Okay, there we go. Got rid of it. Right? Looks good. All right, so right now I'm saying make it a red fill, draw the arc, or create an arc and then fill it with red. All right, so this is what we have right now, this red ball on the screen. I want it to drop. I want it to fall. All right? So I want to somehow increase the X value, right? But keep increasing the X value, right? I want to keep increasing the X value over and over and over and over again. All right? So let's first just make a function in our class, our ball class, that can do that. Like this dot update, you can pick whatever, this dot move, this dot whatever, I just call it update, equals a function. And that function is going to just simply say this dot x plus equals like 10. And the same with, maybe we'll do this dot y, so it'll fall kind of at a diagonal, right? This dot y plus equals 10. Now if I run that update function, what'll happen?
It'll keep going forever.
It'll, if I run it one time, what's gonna happen?
No, it'll just move once.
Yeah, so let's look at this right here. If I type it right here, ball.update, what do you expect to see? So yeah, watch the screen. You see nothing. Okay? Why do I see nothing?
Oh, because you're updating.
Because I updated, but I didn't redraw it. Right? I didn't redraw it. I didn't call this draw function. So if I were to look at the values of ball.x, it's now 110. So it did increment, but it didn't redraw it. Well, I want to redraw it. I want to keep drawing it. Right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So just to prove that point, if I were to update it first and then draw it, right? You see that it moved over a little bit because I updated the numbers, then I drew them. So we need some sort of way to update, draw, update, draw, update, draw, update, draw, right? We basically want an infinite loop that's going to update, draw, update, draw, update, draw. That's exactly what we want, is an infinite loop. We're going to actually make infinite recursion. Yes, infinite recursion, okay? So here's what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is, let me line those up better. I'm going to create a global function here that's not part of the object that's called draw. And this is how you're going to find, as we go along, when you make a canvas, you're probably always going to want to have this setup function and then this draw function. The draw function is going to be this loop where it keeps refreshing the canvas, okay? And then the setup function is going to be what we've already seen right here. So now let's make this function called function draw. This is not part of the ball object. And I want that function to loop over and over again. All right, I want this to happen over and over and over again. Does everybody see what I'm saying there? All right, so I want that to loop just infinitely, all right? So I better call it, first of all, right, draw, and call the draw function there, all right? So look at this code there. The idea of this draw function here on our JavaScript is we want a function that we're going to loop infinitely, and it's going to keep repainting the canvas over and over again, like refreshing the canvas over and over again, all right? So what we're going to do here is there's a built-in thing that you can call, which is, it's called get, what is it? It's something AnimationFrame. Request, thank you, I couldn't think of the word. Request, this is a built-in JavaScript thing. AnimationFrame. Okay? What this function does is you tell it some function that you want to be the animation function, basically. Right? So I want to tell it that the draw function is the animation function. Right? So let's look at what happens here. If I draw it, if I put draw here, that means call the draw function. What's the draw function going to do? It's going to call this, right? Yeah, you know, you can actually put it right here. okay? It just tells it which loop to draw over and over again, right? So when I do this, this will actually work, but we're gonna have a different problem, okay? Does everybody see what happened though?
Yeah, it'll keep falling forever.
Well, other than the infinite falling, yeah, that we're gonna deal with that too. There's a different problem though. It's drawing the ball, the X and Y keeps increasing, and it's just drawing a new ball on top of a new ball, and it's gonna go infinitely, okay, forever. So let's first of all, that doesn't look like a moving ball, right? Because what's happened, we have these transparencies laid on top of each other over and over, and it's gonna keep drawing it. So every time it draws, I wanna clear the canvas, right? So what I can do is draw a rectangle that is exactly the size of the canvas and clear, and there's a function called ClearRect, which you can clear out a rectangle the size of however big you want, right? So we're gonna do that. Right here in our animation frame, before we run the update in the show, we're gonna do pencil dot, and this time we can just use pencil because it's a global thing. Pencil dot clear rect, and you want it to start from 0, 0, and you want it to go to the inner width, to the inner, actually we want to go to the canvas, what do we call our canvas? World dot width to the world dot height. Right, that makes sense? Does everybody understand? So we're going to clear a rectangle the size starting at 0, 0, top left. That's the size of our world width and height. Right? And so now when we do it, we get a falling ball illusion. Right? Now it's going to fall infinitely. That's no bueno. We can deal with that. Okay? What we're going to do next, so before we move on, we're going to do a new subject here related to all this. Before we move on, do we understand the basic premise of what we just did here? Okay, this is kind of a crash course on how to do all this stuff. But there's a lot of code here, so just real quickly scanning the code. I'm not going to talk through all of it again, but do we understand these 4 lines of code? Yeah? We understand the setup here. It's just initializing our variables. It's creating our canvas. That's what these 3 things are creating. Yeah?
So why isn't it clearing the pink when you do the clear rectangle?
Because you're clearing, the pink is the canvas. What we're clearing is a rectangle on top of the canvas. We're clearing out a space that's the size of the canvas itself, but it's also being drawn on with our brush, because the canvas and the brush are 2 different things, or our pencil or whatever, they're 2 different things. So we're not clearing the canvas itself, we're clearing the stuff on the canvas. We're clearing stuff on the canvas that is the full size of that whole rectangle. So if I did something like this, where I said like 100 by 100, and I refreshed it, it only cleared a little teeny spot there, right? Let me make it a little bit bigger. Like, we'll do like 500. So every time it's only clearing a square that's 500 by 500. That part's getting redrawn, but the rest of it's not. Not being redrawn, but being basically an invisible rectangle, right? All right, so we're gonna go back to full width there. Okay, good. All right, so now this again is just creating the canvas, right? It was actually taking the canvas element that's already been created in our HTML and sizing it. That's all that's happening there. Here we're getting this object that gives us all these fabulous tools. Strokes and fills, and we can draw triangles and circles and squares and all kinds of stuff. Here we're making a ball object, which we saw the code below. Here we draw this, and now at the very beginning we call those 2, and this is our animation loop. So these 2 lines of code right here, your animation loop should always have those 2 lines of code in them if you're going to do an animation, right? Your animation function. And the way I typically do my stuff, I will create in the class an update and a show for whatever I'm doing. If I'm moving Space Invaders, little aliens, like I showed you that one the other day, or whatever I'm trying to do, I will have a show to draw it and an update to move it. Okay, you can use move if you want, it's maybe a better name. All right, and then any questions about our class here before we get into the next piece? That's our class right there. We okay with that? Okay, let's do some collision detection. All right, here's what I want to do. Let's see if we can logic this out, right? Think about what's happening here.
You'll be changing the update.
Yeah, we're gonna, so let me go back to, we're not gonna update for a minute, we're just gonna draw. Okay, so I'm drawing this, by the way, I'm drawing this over and over. Look at my console. Well, it's not gonna show anything because there's not, I don't think it's showing anything. Yeah. I don't have any code there, but it's looping thousands of times right now. It's just going over and over and over again, right? But we have a ball here. What I want to do is if this ball hits the edge, I want to change its direction, right? So right now the X and Y are increasing. Well, remember that the top left corner is X0, Y0, right? So if I increase Y, that's dropping down. If I increase X, it's moving to the right, which is what we're doing in our update function right here. See that? That makes sense? So if Y is dropping and it hits the bottom, I just want to reverse Y, just make it negative Y, and it'll start going back up. That make sense? The question is, how do I know that it's hit the bottom? But what if what, though?
If this dot y equals window dot height,
Close, very close. He said if this dot Y equals window dot height. Let's look at that.
minus 100 because of no, minus 50 because half the ball.
Not 50. Minus, you had the right idea, you just said the wrong thing.
I thought it was 50 because of the
No,
radius.
but why 50?
Because of the radius.
Because that's the radius. What if the ball didn't have a radius of 50?
Well, then you do side length of whatever.
Right, which is what? R.
Yeah.
Not just 50, right, but the actual variable R.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I
So,
meant. Sorry.
yeah, all right, I just want to make sure. Yeah, so what we need to do, I'm looking for the situation where if Y, right now, because I keep increasing Y infinitely, right? If Y, which is in the middle of the circle, right? Wherever that circle's at, that's your Y, your X and Y coordinates are the dead center. Well, I don't want Y, because that's the center right here. I don't want Y to hit the bottom of the screen, because then it'll go halfway out the screen, right? The ball will get cut in half. I want it to go, whatever Y is, plus the radius. When that number is the same as the inner width of the inner height of the screen, then that's when we want to reverse things. That make sense? Everybody follow that idea? So let's try it. Okay, let's just close this out here. All right, and what I'm going to do is make these variables, right? So I'm going to make those like, I don't know, we'll call them this dot, we'll call it like direction or something like that. I don't know, that's not their best word, but we'll just set it at 10, okay? And we're gonna say direction, oh, sorry, this dot direction, okay? This dot direction, let's make sure I didn't break it, let's run it again, and turn on the update. Okay, didn't break it, good. Okay, now, let me refresh, get to normal screen size. All right, so here we go. Inside of our update statement, I want to do this or reverse it. All right, so let's go like this. If this dot y plus this dot radius, does everybody understand that that's the bottom of the circle? Right, that makes sense? Question? Or are you just waving? Oh, okay, I thought you had a question, sorry. Okay, so this dot y plus this dot radius, that is the bottom of the circle. Does everybody understand it? We get that, we're good? Okay, if that number is greater than what?
Window dot height?
The canvas height, actually. Because sometimes you may draw your canvas smaller than your window, that sometimes you'll want to do that, right? So we want to do the canvas, which what do we call our canvas? World dot height, which we probably should pass in the canvas too if we're going to do that. But let's just see if this works. What do I want to do in that event? Yeah, I want to change the y value in this case to what? Whatever it is, -1, right? Will that do it? Okay, so let's try that. Okay, this dot y times equals -1, something like that. Let's just try that, okay? Oh, I forgot to turn on the update. Whoa, come back. There we go. Update. Didn't work. What's wrong?
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a little piece we missed, okay? So here's what's happening. We actually don't want to set the y direction to -1 times -1, because all that's going to do, if it's at 100, that's the bottom of the window, let's say it's 100, well, it's going to just be -100. So what's that going to do? it's gonna move it like way off the screen, right? That's why you saw it come in at the angle over there, because it went way off the screen. What I really wanna do is change this direction that's being multiplied by to a negative number, right? But I don't wanna change it for both directions because the X one is not ready to be changed yet. So we really should have something like an X direction and a Y direction, right? And X and Y direction. And now what I could say is this dot DRR Y DIR. That should give us what we're looking for. Can you dig it? That's just some math stuff right there. That's not a programming thing. I'm going to test it, then we'll come back and look at the code again and see if it worked. And bam, look at that. You see it? We still got some other stuff to check for, but it looks like it's working just fine. Okay? Now, if I took out the radius part of it, let's just make sure we see why that was an issue. You'll see it'll go halfway through the screen before it bounces. See that? How it went down halfway before it bounced? Which is
It's like a real rubber.
yeah, it's more, yeah. And you can add gravity effects to it mathematically to make it, because right now we have infinite bouncing, right? It's just gonna keep going forever. There's no gravity effect on it. We'll learn of that another day. But do you guys understand what just happened here, why we did this? Does that make sense? Right now, every time we loop through this, y is being multiplied by, or added 10 to it. Well, I just changed it to now add negative 10 every time. It's gonna add negative 10 every time. Make sense? So now it's gonna just subtract 10 and keep going the other way. Do you understand the math? Anybody not clear on that? We good? Okay. Well, there's another condition where we wanna do that exact same thing. There's two conditions where we wanna do that. I wanna do it where the ball hits the top of the screen. I also wanna just reverse dy. Back, if I multiply by -1 again, it becomes positive again, right? So, in the event that this is true, or this dot y, what? We need to consider the radius plus the radius this time, right? This dot y plus the radius. If that is less than 0, which is the top of the screen, top of the canvas. Did everybody see that? So now, this may not quite work because it's going to angle out of our view, but let's watch it. See if we can get it to go. Yeah, oh, get it, hit it. Oh, man, we're off a little bit. Okay. So this dot y, no, minus radius. Yeah, minus the radius. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Now let's try it again. Watch. Bam. See that? It hit there. Okay? Because this dot y is whatever, 100 pixels down or whatever, but we need to, the 100 is here, the screen is here, right? We want to go the radius distance, that's the top of the circle. When we get that top of the circle, we want that number. When that hits the top, then we want to reverse it, right? Does everybody understand that code? We do the exact same thing with the x variable, right? Just this dot x plus the radius, the width, and this dot x, that's the same, sorry, and x direction. Exact same code, same idea, right? So now let's see what we get. And it bounces, and it'll bounce in that corner, bouncing, and now it's going to bounce forever inside of here. Okay? Does that look like it's going off the screen still? Watch when it hits right now at the top. Didn't it look like it went off for a second? Didn't that look a little weird? It's not doing it other times, so it just might be an illusion, maybe. I'm not sure. But now it's bouncing forever. Okay. So the basic idea here, there's really only two things at play. There's a canvas, which again, think of it like a painter, like an artist, like Bob Ross with his white canvas, with his liquid white placed on it, ready to go, right? He's got the liquid white, okay? And then he gets out all of his paintbrushes. Well, our canvas is literally the tag, bam, right there. Our paintbrush, let's close this one out. Our paintbrush we basically invented it, we called it a pencil, but we invented it right here, and we assigned it this object. Again, that object has all these methods and properties, and you can look them up on W3 Schools if you want. But we've used some of them now. We use some right here to create a fill style and to create an arc, which we made into a circle, and to fill that arc, right, using that fill style. Okay? Yeah.
I'm assuming there's 3D ones?
There is, you can do 3D, right? But it changes everything on here. Just putting a 3 there will break everything, right? Because you'll need to pass in the Z or index, and there's a whole bunch of other functions you got to use. So we may look at that a little bit later. That might be one of those extra lectures that I need to fill in, maybe. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. Okay, and so you don't make circles, you make spheres, right? All right, so then the other big picture here, this is how I do mine. You don't have to do this, but this is how I prefer to do it. I always, in my main chunk of code, will create a setup function and a draw function, right? You can call those whatever you want. I just like those terms. The draw function will be your animated loop that loops over and over and over again, and your setup function will be the stuff that just runs whenever you refresh the page, just at one time, all right? Okay, let's play around a little bit. We've got 8 minutes. Let's add a couple little cool things to this. One thing, why don't we make a random color, all right? So this is gonna be messy, right? Just kick back and watch for a minute because you guys will understand this totally. So right here in this value, I can pass in an RGBA. Let's just do an RGB, right? Of 100, 230. I don't know what color that's gonna be. Any guesses? It's going to be like a orange, I don't know. Oh, it's a light lime green, okay? All right, but let's make these random numbers, right? Okay, so let's, inside of our class, we could make it to where we pass in the color if we want, lots of different things. Let's just make the class choose the color, right? So I'm going to do this dot red is equal to, ready for this mess here, math dot floor, math dot random, times 255, which is the maximum number of colors you can choose. And I think that's all, right? Okay, we're gonna do that for green and blue, RGB, right? Then we're gonna say,
Some weird colors.
okay, yeah, well, actually they look pretty cool, kind of some pastels. I've done this before, it's pretty cool. So this dot color is gonna be equal to RGB parenthesis plus, right, you follow me? This dot red plus, comma, plus this dot green. Everybody follow what I'm doing here? Plus, comma, plus this dot blue, plus parenthesis, semicolon, right? There's my color. That's a random color, right? And let's just stick that down here. And this, we're just gonna replace that with this dot color. And now, there's a dark green, there's a lime green, there's a blue, a pink, lots of different colors. Well, let's have a little fun. Now that we've built our class, we've built all the functionality on it, let's make an array of balls, right? So I have all these balls all over the place, right? Okay? Now, well, let's start there. Let's quickly, I'm going to say, let balls equal an array, okay? And then we're gonna do in our setup here, we'll do a for loop, I equals 0, I is less than what, I don't know, 100 balls, I plus plus, and then we're just going to balls dot push, new ball. Now they're all gonna be the same size and start at the same point at the moment because we have to put in one set value for the, because we're doing it in a loop. So maybe we can figure out a way to put some random values in there. But let's just do this real quick. 100, comma, 100. Actually, this is going to look hideous if we do this. So what we'll do here, let's just fix this in my loop real quick. Let's make these random as well, okay? So that's going to be math.floor, math.random times, I don't know, 100. And we'll do the same thing. Do I have enough parentheses here? There we go. You guys follow what I'm doing there? Okay, I think I have too many parentheses. I'm going to pull that out because that's getting messy. We're just going to go let x equal that, and let y equal that same thing, right? And we'll just do x comma y. Dig what I'm doing there? Just making a random x, y coordinates, right? And maybe we'll even randomize the radius, okay? Radius. And there's a way to do a range. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's just do that. So now I got 100 balls in the array. Now, in my draw, I'm going to do a for of loop right here. Does everybody see what I did there? I think that you guys should know how to do that. That's pretty straightforward, right? I just made an array of 100 balls with random positions, okay? So now in my for of loop, I want to loop through this for every ball, right? So for ball of balls, which is the name of our array, we're just going to do that. That's it. That should give me 100 randomly colored balls, except I got an error, of course. Let's see what we got here. Console, missing a parenthesis. What did I miss? Right here. Nope. Yeah, one more, dude. I missed 2 parentheses. All right, now look, this is going to error over and over again. Cannot read JavaScript line 56.
Why did you put a math.4 inside the new ball?
Oh, I didn't mean to. That was an accident. Good catch. There we go. That's probably what's going on there. All right, now we got line 56 still. See what we got here. This may be a problem that we're passing in that pencil every time. Let's just look at this, make sure that that pencil is even available to us. And it is not available to us just yet. Right? You see why? Yeah. Yep. So we just got a little bit of a scope error. That's no big deal. So we're going to move all this crap up here before this, that, and the setup, right? Because I'm trying to pass pencil right here. It doesn't exist yet. All right. That should solve the problem. There we go.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So the reason they're clustered like that is because I'm doing, I'm not giving a broad enough scope in my range. So I want to actually do a range. It does look kind of cool, yeah. And it starts to spread out a little bit. Now, why they're getting stuck on the side is because I'm allowing them to generate at their X and Y position at 0, which means their radius, like they're dead center on the edge of the window. So the window's here and they're like this, right? So we need to fix that problem, which we have no time to fix. But let me just tell you how to clear this up real quick. If I want to do a range, remember this formula. I want to do this times, I'm going to type words here for a minute, and then we'll fix it. Minimum, yeah, I'll do min. Min minus max, or sorry, max minus min. That whole thing plus min. Make sure I got my parentheses and everything correct here. And then that, I need another parenthesis right there, and that should fix that. Okay, so what I want there, I want the maximum to be like 100, the minimum to be like 50, and then the minimum to be 50, 50, and the maximum here to be 50, the minimum to be like 25, 25. That formula is on the video, so you can rewatch that piece right there if you want to. That should solve most of our problem, except I got another error, of course. Console, we're out of time too. 16, unexpected token. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah, there's still something wrong with my formula there. It's this. Let's see if that'll fix it. If not, we'll fix it later. Not quite yet.
Yeah,
At least they're not stuck.
little range.
Yeah, oh, you're right, it is a small range, that's right, I did a small range. So if I want to do a little bit bigger range, like 10 to 10, and maybe like, I'd probably want to make this X, the window, the canvas, world dot width, minus the radius, right? Minus radius, which I don't know what the radius is because it's random, follow me? So I don't know what the radius is because it's random, so I'm going to put this here, right, real quick, minus the radius, and then we're going to do the same thing here, world.height minus the radius. That should give us what we want. Yeah, there we go. Alrighty, folks, we interrupt your bouncing ball enjoyment to bring you an announcement. I've goofed up on the math a little bit, and you'll see, you can actually see what's happening here. Notice at the bottom here, you got these little dudes that are stuck on the very bottom, and if I refresh it, you still are going to get some refresh on the bottom. So what's happening here, let's see if I can sort of draw a little circle here to show this problem. Let's see if I can make an oval right here. Yeah. So I'm going to try my best to draw a circle here, and it's not going to be perfect, but that's roughly a circle I'm drawing at right now. So if you look at this, the distance from the edge of the screen, which is right here, to the radius, that distance is right where my little pencil thing's pointing. That is the X and Y coordinate, right? And so when I'm generating in my code where I'm going to position the X and Y, I want at the smallest number to be right here, which will be exactly 0 plus the radius, right? It'll be 0 plus the radius. So in other words, just the radius. So that distance right here, and we're going to have the same kind of thing on the edges of the screen here. So let's just try to see if I can draw some more circles here, right here, right? So it's not quite a perfect circle. I'll draw another guy down here so we can sort of see this in action here. All right, and then one over here somewhere. All right, so that's not a good one, but let's try one that's closer. So ignore that last one there. That's close enough. All right, I really want to get it right against the edge, but it's kind of tricky to draw that. So here's the idea. I want my random number range to go from radius all the way down to height minus radius, right? Which means that the where can that ball be spawned? It can only be spawned from this point, you know, all the way across here, but no closer to the edge than right there, right? Whatever the radius is going to be. So when the full radius comes in, the closest that ball can ever get is right up against the edge. So it's going to go from radius all the way to height minus radius, because the height is here. We subtract out the radius, and that means that the most of that y coordinate could ever be is right there where my pencil is. Same thing going from left to right. We don't want to go 0 because 0 is the edge of the screen. So if I allowed my x coordinate to be here, then I could have a ball being generated off the screen halfway. So we want to go from 0 plus the radius, which is just the radius, right? So from radius all the way to the width minus the radius, right? So the width is, you know, let's say it's 1200 pixels and the radius is 50, so we're going to go to 1150. That's the maximum. So it should go from both ends, from radius to something and then from radius to something. Well, the radius to width minus radius and the radius to height minus radius, right? So those are our min and max values. So let's turn all this stuff off here and we'll get back into the code. And so again, let's just make a little note here in my code. The min, or sorry, that should be a comment there. The min for the height or width will actually be 0 plus radius, right? That's what we decided by looking at the screen there. So that's going to be the minimum place at the top and the minimum place on the left. And then the maximum for width, anyway, the maximum width will be all the way to the width minus the radius, right? And then the maximum height, max height will be height minus the radius, right? So we had the right idea. We're close here, right? We were just a little bit off because I had these hard numbers here. So the idea would be the width minus the radius, which we did. That is our max. Remember, the formula is max minus min plus min. So first of all, this number and this number should be the same, right? Well, we just happen to know that in this case, what is our min? Is 0 plus radius, right? Which is just radius, right? So if I just put those numbers there, radius, right? That will actually solve the problem. So let me refresh it and prove to you that it does. And now you no longer have these guys stuck on the bottom there, right? Right? So no matter how many times I refresh it, nobody gets stuck on the edges or on the bottom, okay? Now, let's just make sure I'll just put a note for this formula here. When you're doing a random, so this is the random formula if you want to do a range, it's math.random times, and that's going to be times the minimum, or sorry, the maximum, which is like a variable, minus the minimum, right? So this whole thing right here, that whole thing in parentheses, plus R. Sorry, plus min, apologize. All right? So that's the basic, that's the formula right there. That's basically this here. I was flooring the whole thing as well, but that is the whole thing right there, okay? So if you want to floor it so that we don't end up with any decimal points, which is not a bad idea, just avoid dealing with that, that's fine. We can go and stick that in there as well. And so this is our new formula right here, okay? So in this particular case, you can see that the max width is equal to 0 plus radius, as I demonstrated by drawing those little ovals, those light blue ovals. And the min height is also radius. And by min, I should say this is not min width, but this is min x, and this is min y, and this is the max x and the max y. That's probably a better way to look at that, okay? And so what we're trying to figure out here is what is the maximum range, the range that I can generate my x value. Well, it's going to be from radius to width minus radius, right? And so if we want to do a max min kind of operation on a random, we have to do this little formula right here, and that will give us a range from whatever our minimum is to whatever our maximum is. So hopefully I didn't beat a dead horse there. And hopefully that clears things up a little bit, and that does solve our problem. So we have a nice bouncing balls without getting stuck on the edges. Hopefully that helps. Thanks, guys. See you in class.